We are literally wasting the wealth. Let's talk about it on today's Walking in Wealth. Greetings and thank you for tuning in to Walking in Wealth. I'm your host, JD Garnier, and you are listening to KKNOK 75 AM or 107.1 FM radio in New Orleans, or you tuned into the Melanomics podcast. I hope you had a productive week in your wealth creation journey. And listen, my goal is simple: to help you walk in wealth, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. To take the things that God has already given you and use those to create a life of purpose, so that wealth is more than just what you acquire. Wealth is who you become. You are the wealth, not your investments, not your real estate, not your business. You are the wealth. And before you have any of those things, you have a unique and specific set of talents, abilities, gifts, ideas, habits, disciplines, and inclinations that form the basis of anything that you do in this world. And once you tap into that, you start your wealth creation journey. So I repeat, you are the wealth. Listen, first things first, if you're not following me on social media, please follow me on Instagram at Walking in Wealth, Facebook at JD Garnier Sr., and please subscribe, like, and share the Melanomics YouTube channel. You can also catch the Melanomics podcast on Spotify and Apple iTunes podcast. When you go into your bathroom and you turn on the faucet, what you're gaining access to in your mind is an unlimited supply of water. As long as the faucet is turned on, that water is running. But unless you're drinking straight out the faucet, or if you're putting it into a cup or a bowl or something, then almost as soon as it comes out of the faucet, that water goes right down the drain, back into the water supply for somebody else to enjoy. And so essentially what you have is an unlimited supply falling into a bottomless pit. The faucet and the drain effect. Now, why am I talking about that? Well, you know, despite everything that we have endured as a country, despite all of the challenges and the things that have deliberately held us back from progress, socially, economically, despite all of that, I'm talking about slavery, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, redlining, civil rights, Iran-Contra, COINTELPRO, the crime bill. The list goes on and on and on of things that have been done to the Black community deliberately in this country to set us back. And you know what? Despite all of that, in the past 30 years, we have created more multi-millionaires in our community than you can imagine. We have built more wealth in the past 3 decades than you can imagine. Despite all of that, we know how to get to the bag. Our creativity, our ideas, our innovation, our work ethic. We know how to get to the bag. Not just in athletics and entertainment, in all kinds of industries, all kinds of sectors. The moment they took the reins off, The moment we were given opportunity to profit off of our talents, abilities, and gifts, we took off running. They had a 400-year race, a 400-year head start. And when we got a chance, we took off running. We figured out how to get to the bag. That's the faucet. We know how to make the money. We just 2 generations from civil rights. And now our millennials and zennials, they get to it. They're starting businesses early. They're investing early. There's no limit on what is possible. We know how to get to the bag. Period. But we waste it. The bag is the faucet. We waste it. You know, for the most part, our water system is pretty reliable, especially if you compare it to other parts of the world. No matter where you at, you turn on the faucet, the water's running. I don't think we really think about how much water actually comes out of the faucet that we never use. Turn on the faucet, it's running. We get what we need, we pour what we need to pour. And the rest of it goes right back down the drain, back into the system for other people to enjoy. And when we've figured out how to get to the bag, how to make the money, but then we turn around and give it right back to the people who are attempting to withhold it from us. We turn around and give it right back to the people that have been stealing from us. We make the money, and then we put ourselves and our family in a position where it's squandered. It is the same as turning on the faucet and letting the water go right back down the drain. That's what we're doing in our community right now. It's the faucet in the drain. We are wasting the wealth. Every time I see a headline or a press release or a news article about something amazing that we've done, right? We've invented this, we created that, we started these businesses, we made millions and millions of dollars. I love seeing it. I love seeing it because we understand the history. We understand that for decades, for centuries, we did not have those opportunities, and now we are taking advantage of it. And I love seeing it. We've learned how to get to the bag. But as long as we continue to think individually, as long as we continue to think that we can thrive in capitalism with individual success, then it's going right back down the drain. Because individual success requires consumption. Individual success does not uplift the entire community. And so, as much as this floodgate has opened up, as much as opportunity has presented itself for us to be able to make money, as much as the faucet is turned on, if we are not taking advantage of and utilizing what is coming out the faucet to change the circumstances of our families and our communities, then it is all for nothing. All of that talent, All of that ability, all of those gifts, all of that creation is going right back down the drain for other people to enjoy. So how do we waste it? How do we waste it? What are we doing? What's a number of things that we do? The first way that we are wasting the wealth is through our consumption mindset. See, as long as we are thinking as consumers, we believe that we need money to buy the things that we need and that we want. And I don't have to tell you this. It's never enough. It is never enough. I don't care how much you buy. It's never enough. I was looking at a video on YouTube this morning. Young black successful guy. You know, he achieved his financial goals at a very, very young age, and he bought himself a sports car. And what he was saying in the video is that he recently sold it because even though he was in a position of financial independence, he could buy what he wanted to buy, he could drive this fancy luxury sports car, it didn't make him happy. It didn't make him happy because a consumption mindset is a mindset of greed and gluttony. It's never enough. That's why billionaires spend hundreds of millions of dollars on yachts, planes. Not because they need them for business, but because of consumption mindset, it's never enough. And collectively as a community, we have a consumption mindset. It is what it is. When I go into the mall, and I go into, I pass up the Louis Vuitton store, the Gucci store, the YSL store. We are literally standing in a line wrapped around the mall to get into those stores. Stores that never have sales. Stores that never endorse the people that actually advocate their products and their brands. Stores that have been caught stealing from our culture, stealing ideas. And we standing in line wrapped around the mall, ready to spend our money. It's a consumption mindset. When the average car note is over $1,000 in a country where so many people are impoverished, so many people are living check to check, so many people are considered middle class, it tells me we have a consumption mindset. So that's the first way that we're wasting money. By consuming. Our music promotes that. You listen to some of the lyrics of some of these songs and they're talking about money. They're literally training you to make bad financial decisions. I bought my Lambo cash. I got 100,000 on my neck. They're training your mind to consume. That's not what wealthy people do. I have clients that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Some of them actually do own Lamborghinis and Ferraris. They didn't buy those vehicles cash. I have clients that can buy diamonds and gold 1,000 times over. Those things are worthless. And so we got to change this consumption mindset. And a lot of times the consumption mindset comes from insecurity. I don't think it's a secret that as a community, we are insecure to the rest of the world. We are insecure about who we are and our place in this world. And so to compensate for that insecurity, because insecurity is based on what's inside. And to compensate for that, we look for outside validation. And most times that's based on what you look like, what you have on, what you drive. And so we use those things as a crutch to pacify those insecurities that we have about who we are and our relevance in this world. But when you know who you are, none of that stuff makes a difference. The more you know about who you are, the less value you put in those material things because they don't mean anything. And when I'm saying this, I'm talking to myself because I've been guilty of this. And it doesn't matter how many luxury items I've bought, each time it was an unfulfilling transaction. It was an unfulfilling transaction. I didn't get anything out of it. I got more out of knowing that I had the ability to afford that than I got from actually owning those goods. And once I understood that, I understood it was nothing but a waste. And wasting the wealth. The majority of your earnings over and above what you should be doing, over and above what you need to take care of your life, anything over and above that, you should be taking that money and buying things of value. You should be buying assets. You should be buying stocks. You should be buying bonds. You should be buying real estate. You should be investing in businesses. You should be trying to understand things like private equity, like hedge funds. You should be buying things of value. That's the first way to build wealth. To buy assets. Buy things that appreciate in value. But you got to get rid of the consumption mindset. Because all that grind, all that hustle, all that hard work, when you do that, you have all this access from the faucet and it's going right back down the drain. Report came out today that they estimate over $200 billion worth of fraud from PPP loans from the pandemic was used on luxury goods, sports cars, jewelry, etc. What that tells me is that when you give people something that they did not deserve, need, or ask for, they're going to consume what they want before they get what they need. We're wasting the wealth. Now, the other way that we waste the wealth is we don't protect it. Now, it's one thing to consume. Culturally, we've been taught to consume. We have to change that mentality. But even outside of that, historically, we don't protect our wealth. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that it's very, very common in our community for somebody in our family to pass away without a will, without a trust, without life insurance, without any of their affairs in order. And whether they just own a piece of dirt or whether they own hundreds of millions of dollars, when you do that, you eliminate a substantial amount of that wealth to the next generation. You're giving it away to taxes, to attorney's fees, Historically, in our community, we don't buy life insurance, we don't get our wills done, and we don't protect the wealth that we spend our lifetime trying to accumulate. And so what happens is when we don't protect the wealth, we force the next generation to start over from scratch. We force the next generation to have to figure it out on their own, to build up their own resources, because we squandered what could have been passed to the next generation. When you die without your affairs in order, the government has all the say so they want in what happens to your money. I don't care what you told your mama. I don't care what you told your kids. I don't care what you told your girlfriend. If there is no legal agreement, the state that you live in dictates who gets what. And most times, that is not what you intend to happen. And so, what normally tends to happen, but even with people with substantial resources, when they die without their affairs in order, their family has to pay thousands of dollars to in attorney's fees. In many cases, they have to pay tens of thousands of dollars in taxes. And if there's not a whole lot of liquidity, they wind up having to sell valuable assets for pennies on the dollar. I've seen people sell family land, family real estate, liquidate family assets just to pay debts because of the person that passed away didn't have a will, didn't have any life insurance, they didn't have their affairs in order. And so essentially, they wasted the wealth. Wealth that they spent 20, 30, 40 years accumulating is now cut in half. And so now the next generation has to make do. So we got to get out of that. We have to stop that. We got to stop wasting the wealth. We have to think differently than what we've been thinking. Listen, I understand for years, for decades, for centuries, we were in survival mode. We was just trying to survive. My grandparents didn't have the opportunity to think about building wealth. They was just trying to survive. I understand that. My parents were working from check to check. They didn't have time to think about how am I going to build wealth for the next 30 to 40 years. I understand that. But as times change, as culture changes, as our circumstances change, so does our mindset. And so now that we have more things available to us, there's no more excuses. We have to put ourselves and our families in a position where we don't waste the wealth. And so how do we reverse the faucet and the drain effect? How do we capture all of the resources that are coming out of the faucet and recycle them for us and our families to enjoy instead of letting it go right back down the drain? How do we take our resources and multiply them so that they can continue to benefit our families? And the answer is don't get the bag. Produce the tree. Don't get the bag. Produce the tree. See, the tree is the resource. See, we got to get out of this getting to the bag mentality, because the bag represents a single solitary source of wealth. You hit a lick, you bust a hustle, you make a business deal, and you get to the bag. But it's not connected to anything. Once the bag runs out, you got to get another bag. and another one and another one because it's not connected to anything. And so don't get the bag, produce the tree. That's why we get into scamming. That's why we look for fast money. That's why we hustle. That's why we say things like, I'm going to hit a lick. That's short-term thinking. That's the bag. The bag is not connected to anything. Don't get the bag, produce the tree. See, when you plant a seed, that seed is nothing but potential. It has the ability to grow to a fully productive tree, or it can just wither away and die, depending on how you take care of it. If you want that tree to grow, you got to cultivate it. You got to nurture it. You got to water it. You got to care for it. And you might do that for months and not see any results. Because when that seed first starts to grow in the ground, it has nowhere to go. It needs your nurturing. It needs your cultivation. It needs your care. And you're not going to see benefits for months. And then one day, it breaks ground. It can see the light. Now it knows. It sees the opportunity to become self-sustaining, to replenish itself, to grow on its own. But it still needs you to be there. It still needs you to water it. It still needs you to care for it. It still needs you to cultivate it. And as time goes by, and it grows more and more, and you continue to care for it, eventually, that tree starts to become self-sustaining. And it doesn't need you to take care of it every day. It's producing on its own. And one day it starts to bear fruit. That's the goal. Producing the tree creates self-sustaining wealth. But it takes time. Don't get to the bag, produce the tree. That's how we have to look at whatever we're trying to do in our life. You starting a business. You're diving headfirst into your new career. You have this idea that you're trying to build on. You're writing a book. Whatever it is that you're working on, when you first start, it's nothing but a seed. It's just potential. But you got to care for it. You got to nurture it. You got to water it. You got to take care of it. You got to cultivate it. You have to give it your energy. And the more of that energy you give it, faster it grows. And for months, you're not going to see any results. That business that you're so passionate about, you're not going to be profitable in your first year. That career that you just can't stop thinking about, you're going to be disappointed in the beginning. That book that you've been working on, you're going to get writer's block. But you got to cultivate it. You got to nurture it. You have to water it. It needs your energy. That's how you make a seed productive. And so whatever you're working on in your life, you have to put in the energy. You have to put in the effort. You have to cultivate it. You have to nurture it until it becomes self-sustaining. That business becomes self-sustaining. That income from that career is so much that now you can demand enough for your time. Those investments that you made are generating enough interest and dividends to replace your income. Now you have a fully productive tree. And when a tree is productive, it bears fruit year after year after year after year. But you got to put in the work. You got to be patient. We got to think long term. We got to stop thinking with this short term microwave mentality.